Welcome to this presentation from Do-It-Yourself Small Business Marketing. This is Keywords Part 1, and we'll be discussing what are keywords and how do I find the keywords that apply to my business. What are keywords? Keywords are just the words and phrases that people enter into search engines like Google, Yahoo, Bing, and YouTube to find information. Now, if you're surprised to see YouTube on that list, pretty much any site that has a box where you can enter a search term or a keyword to find information could be considered a search engine. And you might be surprised to learn that YouTube is actually the second most used search engine in the world, second to Google. It actually gets quite a bit more searches than Yahoo or Bing. Now, keywords are also sometimes called search terms, as I've mentioned just a moment ago, and that's simply because that's the information people are entering into a box to search for information. The next term we need to discuss is search volume. Search volume refers to the number of searches done over time for a given keyword, and it's usually expressed in searches per month. Global search volume refers to the number of searches for a given keyword worldwide. Local search volume refers to the number of searches for a given keyword in the country that the user is in, and also the language that the user is using. So for example, if I'm in the United States and I'm using a tool to find out how many searches there are for local search volume, it's going to give me everything for the United States. And if I'm in England, it would give me the search volume for England as the local search volume. Long tail keywords. Now, long tail refers to keyword phrases with multiple words that add specificity. So, for example, if we're in the clothing market and we want to get a long tail keyword that's very specific, and we have a business that caters to a rather unique clientele, we might have a keyword such as vintage transvestite clothing in San Antonio. And you'll notice I use a lot of San Antonio in my examples, and that is because I'm in San Antonio, and my search engines like Google are going to tend to default to the area that I'm in. So you'll see a lot of San Antonio in my examples. And so in the example, like I said, the long tail refers to a lot more additional words that are going to add specificity. So if you cater to transvestites looking for vintage clothing, and I know that's a very important thing for me when I go shopping for clothing, then you're going to want to use a lot of specificity. Now, although long tail keywords usually have a much lower search volume than less specific keywords, for example, if we just put clothing into a search engine, we're going to see a lot more search volume for the term clothing than we would for vintage transvestite clothing in San Antonio. But the lower search volume typically produces more highly targeted website traffic that is easier to convert to paying business. Again, going back to my example here, if I'm looking for vintage transvestite clothing in San Antonio and I enter that search term, typically I'm going to find a very specific type of business, and that's the one that I'm going to be most likely to do business with rather than just a general clothing store. Now we come to geo-targeted keywords. Geo-targeted, or geographically targeted as it's sometimes called, are those keywords that specify a geographical area, of course. And so the examples of that would be dentist in San Antonio, Texas, dentist San Antonio dentist, San Antonio dentists, etc. Depending on your local area, you may see various types of geo-targeting when we go into the AdWords keyword tool, which we're going to be discussing in just a minute. Now, here, as I mentioned, the Google keyword tool, the full name is the Google AdWords keyword tool, but you don't need an AdWords account and you don't need to run AdWords ads to be able to use it for free. It is a good predictor of the usage of a given search term on all search engines. Other search engines just have a lower volume of searches than Google, even though it is specified to the number of searches on Google. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Google keyword tool, and I'll show you how to use it. All right. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is how to find the Google AdWords keyword tool, and I am going to give you a link below this video that will direct you to the proper page. But in case you don't have that link handy, you can go to Google, and this is Google, even though the logo over here looks a little different. It's some kind of tribute to John Lennon as I'm filming this, so they don't have their usual logo up. But you could just type in AdWords keyword tool, and the results that come up will be the AdWords keyword tool page will be usually the first one on the list. So that's the one that you're going to want to select. So I have that already loaded up on another page. And here we are. So I've taken the liberty of already entering in some keywords as if we're looking to find out what to do if we're a dentist in San Antonio. And you'll want to put in both kind of the singular. So we have dentist, and you'll see I have dentists on some of these. And you'll want to put in your town name. And you also want to put in the state all spelled out as well as the state abbreviation. So put in 4 or 5 different search terms along those lines. It doesn't have to be specifically the way I've done it, but if you give it the tool 4 or 5 different selections that cover the same general topic, then it's going to suggest additional search terms for you, and so it'll give you a bunch of keywords that are related to your business. Now you can see what I've done here is I've got these things in the little brackets. I'm going to show you how you get that, because when you first put in your search term, it's going to give you what's called a broad match. So you want to come down to this menu on the left, and you want to uncheck the broad because it'll be defaulted like this. You want to uncheck the broad. Well, it's loading right now. You can see when it's a broad, it will give it to you like this without the brackets. So we want to unclick broad and put it in exact match. And that'll give you a much more reliable count, because with broad match it'll include a lot of things that may not actually be related. It's just automating the term. And so as we come up here, we can see we have Dentist San Antonio. And usually when you're doing these geographically targeted search terms, the global monthly searches will be pretty close to the local monthly searches. There may be a little difference on a few of them. But just for basically get an idea of what search terms to use, what I recommend you do is you write down the search terms that it's giving you and write down the number of local monthly searches. So you can just scroll down the list, and you can see San Antonio dentist gets 260, dentist in San Antonio, Texas 91. Now most of these are going to be related, the first several are going to be related to what we put in, but as it goes along, because it wants to give you 50 to 100 search terms, some of them may not be particularly well related. Now as we come down, like for instance here we are, San Antonio Hospital, we don't really want that one, so just record the ones that apply to you, and I recommend you write them down on paper, because I found that's just generally the most convenient way of having them stored, is that if you have a piece of paper with your search terms on it, it's nice and handy and you can use it. So that's, you just continue to scroll down. It'll give you usually 1 to 2 pages of these things. It looks like it's giving me 100, so I could go to page 2 and get additional, but usually we're just going to scroll through both of the pages, find out what all we have for search terms that relate, and the ones that are related to your business, like for instance if you do teeth whitening in San Antonio, there's a good one for you if you're a dentist, and just figure out which ones apply to your business. Once you have your list and the number of searches for each search term, we're going to talk about more on what to do with those keywords as we go along. Coming up in part 2 of this section on keywords, we're going to talk about something that's changed the game a little bit here recently with regards to keywords, and that is the Google Instant feature. So we're going to be coming back to that in part 2, and then in part 3 we're going to talk about assessing your competition for different keywords. So stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.